Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm not really here to talk about Dungeons and Dragons rules, although my channel is certainly very much about that sort of thing. Really, this is a video for the Dungeon Master. And I really want to talk about a particular style of Dungeon Master. If there's any message that I want to give to you when you're playing Dungeons and Dragons and running the game of Dungeons and Dragons, and that is this message, that it is actually important to look after your mental health and your physical health. And the message I want to communicate to you is that being a lazy dungeon master, that particular attitude is actually quite healthy and it's quite smart. Simply because we can't all have copious amounts of time available to actually do the sorts of things we would like to do. Life makes things more difficult than we might expect sometimes, or we might want. I am a huge fan of Mike Shea. He is also called Flourish. He has a number of ebooks, and one of those books is called The Lazy Dungeon Master, which you can see. This is the cover right now in front of you. This is the cover of that particular ebook. He also has a number of other books which we'll talk about as we go. So being a lazy dungeon master is not really for everybody. So I want to make it clear that just because I'm talking about this particular topic doesn't mean it's for you. I still think it's a smart and healthy way to operate, but it's not always the right way to operate for everybody. It's hard to be a lazy dungeon master. Okay, it really is very, very difficult to actually put yourself in a situation where you try to be lazy deliberately without doing a huge amount of work, because it requires the dungeon master not to worry. Is there such a thing as a dungeon master that doesn't worry about this stuff? Because I don't know that there is. I know a lot of people who just don't stop worrying about running the game, and this is something that's supposed to be fun. It's kind of strange, right? If you have not read the ebook, The Lazy Dungeon Master, I would recommend that you do. And I have provided a link to the PDF, which you can get off Amazon. I don't know if I've also included a link to Sly Flourish's website, but if I haven't, I'll make sure to do that. And that will give you sort of a really good breakdown of how to be a lazy dungeon master. But recently, he's also released Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, which is sort of the second book. So if you're going to buy The Lazy Dungeon Master, you might as well go and buy the new one, which is the Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. Now, he's got a YouTube channel. You can go and check out his YouTube channel. It covers lots of really good advice. He goes into depth on the content that's in that ebook, and also you can get a soft cover, a paper-covered book copy if you wanted to. And it goes into a lot of detail about really smart ways of operating as a dungeon master, because people have busy lives. So spending lots of time on the game preparation and all the resources that you need to actually run the game and just the mental space of preparing yourself, okay, it's not really possible or reasonable for normal people, like the normal individual in the world doesn't have the time to spend doing all the things they would like to do, even if they would like to do those things. So you have to create what are called shortcuts. Shortcuts are really important. And the attitude of a lazy dungeon master is really the thing that I want to talk about today. Rather than, all the strategies you might use, which I will certainly talk about later in other videos, I want to talk about how to actually cultivate and what the attitude of a lazy dungeon master actually looks like. Because when we say lazy, we always assume that being lazy is a bad thing, okay? And quite often being lazy is. But there are times when being lazy is actually a good thing. And this is one time when being lazy can be a very good thing for your health. So let's have a talk about how to do that, what it looks like, and what sort of things might be holding you back. So it's a process, unfortunately, being a lazy dungeon master. It's a process of letting go of your fears. Just saying, to hell with it, jump out of the plane, jump off the cliff, and just see what happens. Now, I know that sounds risky because you are having to take quite a big risk by doing that, but it's actually important for you to allow yourself the opportunity to just see what will happen rather than thinking you can control absolutely everything in your game and your life, because you can't. It's not knowing that what the story path will be. Sometimes all you can do is prepare the next session, and you won't get past that. And whatever you have prepared for that one game session might not even take place because the players might decide to do something that you weren't expecting. There's always that possibility. So allowing yourself to prepare material for your game in a short space of time and not worry so much about the path of the story or adventure. Broad brushstrokes are always a good thing, and just jump out of that plane and just see where you land. It requires you to not really care what happens with the player's characters. Now, that sounds terrible, doesn't it? Not caring about character death, really not getting so invested and uptight about the possibility that somebody's character might die, because it's not the end of the story, and it's one of the things that holds dungeon masters back quite a lot. The fear that there'll be a complete party wipe or a character will die. They're worried about the effect on their campaign and how to continue the story. They're worried about the effect it will have on players. Will they come back to my table? I know that comes through my mind every time a character dies at the table. Will my player get so upset they will not return? That is always a fear that's rattling around in your brain. And the fact is, often it is an unfounded fear, because players do come back to the table even when a character dies. And it's how you approach character death too. Being absolutely desperate to try and keep your monsters and your main villain alive in your campaign. So no matter what happens, you've got to try and make sure that the players' characters don't take out the main boss too quickly, because what happens then? How am I supposed to manage that situation? I wasn't actually preparing for that. That was the actual main villain. Now I don't have a main villain because they've been destroyed, because I wasn't expecting the synergy between all the players' abilities to be so effective. So actually allowing yourself to say, I don't care if my monsters or my main villain perishes. If they perish and die, never mind, I will make something else. That's fine. I can just do something else. Not being sure what to do or say next. Oh, this is a big one for Dungeon Masters. Literally, I don't know what's going to happen next because the players haven't done it yet, and I have to see what they do before I can respond. Not knowing what to say next, and just improvise. This is a skill. It's clearly a skill for advanced dungeon masters, and newer dungeon masters might find this very, very scary and certainly much harder to do. But as you get better at practicing it, it will get easier. That's the whole point. So allowing yourself an opportunity to not be sure what will happen. One of the best things I've ever done in my entire life as a dungeon master is I had a session where I had prepared nothing. I didn't know what I was going to do, and I just walked in and I said, okay, we're going to play. And I just let the players perform their actions. I responded. I thought at the end of that particular game session that it was a terrible game session, that it was appalling, like one of the worst dungeon master sessions I had ever run. Like it was my fault, right? And the players told me at the end that they had so much fun and they really enjoyed it. And suddenly my understanding and perception of what was a good game session had to change, because it kept happening to me. Every once in a while, I would not have enough time to prepare, and the players would say, no, it was a good session. We enjoyed it. So yes, making sure you allow yourself to be surprised by your players. Allow your players to surprise you and do things you were not expecting. That's a big thing. Okay, this is a hard one. And to be fair, the advice on this one relates to my channel as well. Okay, I want to make it clear. It's not just my channel or other people on the internet. And that is, try to work against all the advice on YouTube and the internet. One of the things you've got to understand is the advice that you're listening to from me or another YouTuber or somebody else on a blog, on the internet, or anything like that, how much interaction have you had with those people? Are they complete strangers? Are they actually good at giving you good advice? Is the advice they're giving you actually tested? Are they in the same position as you? Because I will tell you now, most of the people who are watching my channel and watching stuff on YouTube, they're not professional dungeon masters. I'm not a professional dungeon master. They're not in a situation where they're running games live as a stream where they have to produce money, that there has to be an income rollover of some kind. They're not professional actors. They're not specially trained in that particular area. They are not trying to produce an income from it. So are the people who are giving you advice talking from their perspective rather than from your perspective, which is, I'm just trying to run a game in a lounge or in a basement or wherever with a few friends around, and that's all I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to do anything more than that. So sometimes the advice you're going to get is things you should probably not listen to and you should ignore because it doesn't really relate to your situation. So that's part of sort of letting go of everything. Okay, here is probably I would say one of the most important factors to understand. A lot of people don't understand this, and that is the concept of letting your games be poor or boring. Having sessions, allowing, if your session is naturally forming a pathway towards being boring or not as efficient or exciting as you had liked, allowing that path to run its course, because it happens to everybody. You need to accept it. And I know a lot of people saying, well, I don't need to accept it, but anybody has always had this problem. There are sessions that just wind up being poor and boring. And you know why a dungeon master is really worried about that happening? 1, players not coming back. 2, a reflection of their skill, because anything that happens at the table, right, has got to be a reflection of your performance and skill, and you must have done something wrong, which of course you didn't do something wrong because there is more than you sitting at the table. Sometimes everybody just shows up to the game session and they're all just so tired they just can't put in the energy to make the session lively and entertaining and interesting, and role play in a way, or just roll dice in a way that is entertaining and exciting. So those aren't actually times that reflect your impact on the game. They could simply be a natural process because of what's happening at the table. Learning to relax. Okay, you need to sort of just chill out, learn to relax, enjoy the story, let the story unfold. Trust that your players can make the game session entertaining when you feel you can't. Because I would like to point out that one of the most successful game groups out there who stream, you know who they are, Critical Role, okay? Matthew Mercer is not the only reason that whole arrangement works so well. There are a whole lot of other people at that table who do a really good job. And Matthew Mercer has talked about the fact that he really struggles with trying to relax before a session, that he gets quite nervous. Now you have a look at all the players, they are all very, very much relaxed. So that's where you need to be as a dungeon master. Just let it go, let it be. Nerves are always sort of natural. But yeah, trust that your players can make the game session entertaining, that you aren't the only one who is responsible for making that take place. And then the last thing I want to talk about, and that is limiting your preparation. You need to have some shortcuts. So limit your preparation, the time you spend before a game, because there are going to be life schedule issues. There are going to be things that happen in your life that are more important than preparing for Dungeons and Dragons and playing the game of Dungeons and Dragons. So whether it's going to the dentist, picking up the kids, picking up the milk and the food shopping, feed the fish, feed the cat, clean the kitchen, all those sorts of things. Dry cleaning, cleaning the house, going to swimming classes. Just allow yourself an opportunity to understand that you can't put in the sort of time that you would like to make that happen. So you're going to need to have, as I've said, lots and lots of shortcuts. We can't always plan for absolutely everything. That is really the message for today. And ultimately, try and relax. Be a lazy dungeon master. Look after yourself. Now, this is your opportunity to give me some feedback. What do you think of this attitude? Is this the right way of operating for you? Have you read or used the Lazy Dungeon Master, or the Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, or even used the Lazy Dungeon Master's workbook that Mike Shull, or Sly Flourish, as most of us probably know, if you have heard of him before, he's usually referred to as Sly Flourish. He's been on the internet for years, and he has some very good advice. Pick the stuff that works for you and dump the stuff that doesn't. That's my advice to you. And my advice is always, if this doesn't feel like the right way for you, then ignore me completely. It's perfectly fine too. Now, if you want to support the channel, you did so by watching this video. I have hundreds more videos for players and dungeon masters, which you are welcome to go and check out if you like. I don't do Patreon, but I do have affiliate links down in the description, and there should be links to all of these books if you are interested. Now, share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos. And till next time, keep rolling those 20s.